Hi, welcome back to Bite Size Guide. I'm Phil. When you start working on an editing project in DaVinci Resolve, you find that at the beginning of your edit, when you're looking at what you've been doing, the playback seems very smooth and lag-free. But as time goes on, when you're working on your project and you start adding additional elements to your timeline, if you've got an extra track of B-roll video or a music track, or you've got graphics and titles, if you've been altering the colour, that sort of thing. All those individual processors, when it comes to rendering the whole thing into one video, takes up a lot of processing power for your PC or your Mac. So you find later on in your project, when things are starting to stack up a little bit, when you play back to see how your video's looking, it can look very laggy and start stammering and stuttering. When it starts doing that, it's really difficult to judge how your edit's going, because you can't really assess the playback all that well because it's not running smoothly anymore. Now in DaVinci Resolve, we can actually counteract that with a few techniques. Now the first technique is called timeline playback resolution. That sounds fancy, but what it actually means is when it's actually playing back, it's your computer's having to crunch all these elements as well as playing back this video. It's having to do both at the same time. Now, if you've imported your video as 4K, by default, what it's trying to do is display your video in 4K in the native resolution. So not only is it having to process all these different elements, sound and video and graphics, it's also having to show it as a 4K video. So what we can do, if we go up to playback, timeline playback resolution, as you can see there, the default is full. That means the full resolution of what your original file was. What you can do, you can half it or you can quarter it. So half it, obviously, it reduces your the resolution by half. You quarter it, you're turning 4K into 1080p. So it takes a bit of strain off your computer's processor and it allows it to play that video back a little bit smoother. So we'll click a quarter. You probably can't tell on this screen because the window is so small, but that actually is now 1080p. If we zoomed it up, you'd be able to tell a difference between the 4K and the 1080. This 1080 is not quite as sharp. But in terms of like processing, it's a big deal for your computer. So if we do that, then it does free up a bit of processing power, and you should find that it reduces the lag to some degree. So that's our first method. Our second method is a technique called render cache. Now what happens when you're actually playing back your project on your timeline, it's actually crunching it all together as it would do if you were exporting it when you've finished the video and you're exporting it out of DaVinci Resolve ready to be uploaded to, say, YouTube. It's doing that on the fly. So it's doing that and displaying your video. So what you can get it to do is to render it in advance. It can do it on the fly as you're actually editing away at your timeline. You can set it so it's actually rendering and caching it as a finished product as you go along. So when you come to play your video back to see what it looks like, it doesn't have to do any of that processing hard work. It's already done it, and it's just playing back the cache because it did it earlier on. So if we go to playback, render cache, by default it's set to none. So we're going to click as user, and we get a red line. Now that red line represents the video to that point. But as you can see, it's red. That means it knows it needs to do it, but it hasn't cached that part yet. And as you can see on the left-hand side, it's starting to go blue and it's moving along. Well, the blue part signifies that it's actually rendered that part and cached it. So it's kind of like already processed that part of the video. What we can do we can just wait for it to render all the way along. And then what we'll do is play back. And we'll just wait now until it's finished, and then we'll carry on. That's just about done. So it's now cached all of that video. It's done all the hard work. So if we press play now, it should run reasonably smooth. Hi, this is Cruise and Travel Happy. Today we're at Kedleston Hall in Derbyshire. Coming up in this video: the cafe, the outside, the inside, the museum, the shop, the church, and the second-hand bookstore. There we go. A marked improvement, I would say, on the original. And of course, when you're actually working on your document, it's actually doing that. It'll be doing that all the time. So when you alter something, it'll recache it. So when it comes to playback, you don't have to wait because it's already done it. It's been doing it all the time. So that's kind of our second method. I'll just note at the end of that particular method, once you've actually done your all your editing, you can actually get rid of the cache. Or if you want to get rid of the cache anyway, that's represented by that now blue line, you can go to playback and delete render cache, and then go click all and delete. And it set it back to red, and we go render cache none. And then delete render cache all and delete. And that's got rid of the render cache. So it's no longer taking up hard drive space. So that's method 2. And our third method is called proxy media. Now, proxy media is where you replace the original camera footage with a substitute that is less information hungry. It's a lesser version, a smaller version of the camera footage. It's big enough just to be able to edit, but it won't slow your PC down as much. What we have to do, we have to tell it to create a version of a file that you've got in your media pool. All will become clearer as we go through it. So first thing we have to do is go to Project Settings. So we go to File, Project Settings, and we go to Optimize Media and Render Cache, and we look at Proxy Media Resolution. So this is the resolution of the proxy media that we're going to be creating as like a copy of our real footage. And we're going to click that as a quarter. So it's going to be the quarter of the resolution of the original. Now if you do this and then you've got an old PC and it's still struggling, you can go down even further. You can go an 1/8 or a 1/16. But I find that a quarter for an average PC is okay. Next, proxy media format. What we're going to do, we're going to change this to H.264 because it's more compatible. Optimize media formats. And we're going to change these to DNHRQHQ because they're more compatible. The reason we don't use H.264 for cache and media formats is because H.264 is a playback codec. It doesn't cope very well as an editing codec. These DNHRHQ and ProRes, they're more for like editing. They're post-production editing codecs. So we put those there. You don't have to worry about it too much. I don't like to go into too much detail because these bite-sized guides are meant to be easy. So I sometimes get a bit carried away giving perhaps too much information, but just change it to that. And what we want to also do. So other than that, we can ignore the rest. So we'll click Save. So next, we want to go to DaVinci Resolve, Preferences, and in Media Storage, there is proxy generation location. So when it creates the proxy files, the imitation files of our camera footage, this is where it will put it basically. And we're going to stick it as proxy subfolders in media file location. So basically it will put the proxy folders right next to the original folders, so you can see them. And okay that. So they are the settings that we need to put in place. And once we've done that, then we can actually generate some proxy media. So what we do is find our media pool. We'll just change the view, the list. And we're going to change the first video in here. What you do normally is just go through the whole lot. When you're creating your project, what you can do is just highlight everything and create proxy and let it do it, basically, if you've got enough hard drive space. But we're just going to do one, just for the purposes of this video. Move that across just so we can see. And our first one on our timeline is 0022. So all you have to do if you're creating proxy media is find the media file that you want to create a proxy for. You right click on it, go to proxy media and generate proxy media. Click on that and it starts to chug away. And we'll just forward that to the end of the generating process. That's done. So we've now created a proxy version of that media file. And as you can see, down on our timeline, there's now two little tabs. One that says HQ and there's a little pink one behind it. Well, the pink one is the proxy. So if we go to Playback, proxy handling, and we tick on prefer proxy, it'll always use a proxy. So we click on that, and you can see proxies come to the forefront. That means that this file now is using the proxy version of that video file. And you can see in the actual video file itself, it says proxy there. So that's what it's actually using. That's what we're using. So if we play that, if we slide across, it just moves a lot faster and a lot easier because the video file that it's actually using is a proxy one, and it's a reduced size. It's been tailored specifically for editing, so you can have that all the way along. It just speeds up everything you do to like a proxy video file is super quick. So if you did that for everything on this project, the editing would be super quick. And then if you wanted to revert back to the original video file, you can go to Playback, Proxy Handling, and click on Prefer Camera Original. So if you click on that, it swaps back to HQ. And when it comes to actually rendering the whole project right at the end, when you've done everything and you're wanting to do the proper render up to a MP4 proper video file that you can upload to YouTube, don't worry about all this, because DaVinci Resolve is intelligent enough that it knows not to use the proxies for final render. It will automatically, by default, use the original files. If it used the proxy ones, it would look a bit rubbish. Because it's reduced resolution and reduced other things as well. It wouldn't look that good on a final product. So it's intelligent, as I say, it's intelligent enough not to use that. It will use the original full version, so you don't have to worry about it for that purposes. This is just for purposes of making our editing life a lot easier. It just speeds the editing process up and makes the playback a lot better. Yeah, so just as a footnote, if you think you will be using proxy media, then I would suggest converting everything to proxy just like that before you start. import your video footage into your media pool. And as soon as you've done that, then highlight everything and right click and do the proxy media, generate proxy media. Do that straight away. And then everything from then onwards that you use, you chop up and what have you, it'll all be proxy media, and it'll make your life a lot easier, especially if you've got an old PC or Mac. I hope that's been enlightening. I hope it wasn't too in-depth for you, but something useful, and it'll hopefully it'll make your life a lot easier. If you found this video useful, please give us a thumbs up and click on subscribe. And also, please leave a comment. The more comments we get, the more improvements we can make to these videos, and the better and more useful they'll be to people in the future. I'm Phil, and this is Bite Size Guide. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.